I think we're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Do we have sound on?
Yep.
I assume Noah's not there physically, right? Was he zooming in?
He's not here right now physically. Rachel said he may, oh, looks like he's on Zoom right now.
Looks like he's coming.
Hello.
Okay, we have everybody. Are we ready to start? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Would all who wish join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Don't believe Meredith or I have any proposed agenda adjustments. Are there any requests for agenda adjustments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections or comments? No, we'll go ahead and vote. Try and keep this in a consistent order. Noah?
Aye.
Kevin?
Hey.
Jake?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries 5-0. Next up are warrants. I would make a motion to approve regular warrants 26G, 8 and 9, payroll 8 and 9, main purse for September 2024, and capital improvements 17. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? We'll go ahead and vote. Noah?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries 5-0. The floor is open for public comment. Is there any public comment?
No public in the room, Brian, so you know.
Okay. Not seeing anybody online either.
There.
Is there somebody who's trying to comment? John? John, you should probably mute yourself if you're not trying to public comment. Okay. Go ahead and move on to acknowledgements. No, any acknowledgements?
Not right now. Thanks.
Okay. Kevin?
None at this time, thank you.
Jake?
None, thank you.
Mark?
Nothing for me, thank you.
I don't think I have anything at the moment either, except I know it's sometimes call it the thick of the semester when everybody's got their heads down and just trying to get things through. That probably applies to the students as much as the staff, but appreciate it's that time of year and hang in there. Any of the students have acknowledgements?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that Shrek the Musical is this weekend and remind anyone who hasn't bought their tickets to buy them. So.
And I wanted to acknowledge the boys cross country team recently competed in the New England Championship and earned 27th or 26th place.
Great. Meredith?
Yeah, I would just add on to what Connor just mentioned, backing up one competition from New England. The boys cross country team won states, and notably, Ben Arsenault also was the state winner for the state meet. So that was quite an accomplishment for the team, and Ben in particular. Um, Also, I wanted just to acknowledge, there's an acknowledgement written on the agenda. BJ Bowden received a grant from Down East Innovation LLC to purchase SEL supplies. Also, I wanted to acknowledge Rachel for her work on the strategic, I don't know if you can see it, strategic plan publication that went out um, last week. And that was a process. And we're pleased with how it turned out. And also want to thank Derek for his assistance in helping with the printing process and being a kind of a liaison for us with the printer. So appreciate those two individuals.
Great, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to reports. Start with Lisa.
Good evening, everybody. I've broken down my board report, looking at our October 1st counts as far as number of students receiving services and under what disability. So you've got that before you. I also broke it down a little further with Orono residents and tuition students. Overall, we get 184 Orono residents identified, 56 tuition students coming to us, and with a total of 240 students in all, which is pretty high. I think probably I'm looking at about 50 more than we were seeing maybe 5 years ago. I'd have to look at those reports though in order to really be sure, but I'm guesstimating. And then I broke it down by school. We have 90 students at ASA. That's 27% of the population. We have 2 students from ASA in placements outside of the school. We have 43 students at OMS. That's 28% of the population. We have 1 student is a tuition student. And or one actually, I'm sorry, is a out of district placement, and 1 is a tuition student. Looking at OHS, we have 107 students. That's 31% of the population. That we're not counting 504s, only special education. That includes 54 tuition students. We certainly, I think, are pretty popular among our sending schools for our services. We have 3 students that are out of district placements that are tuition students, basically where they're sending high school, but we're not seeing those kids in our schools. I have been trying to keep tabs on where things are with our social workers. We have BJ Bowden, who currently has 71 students on her caseload. Usually there's a recommendation of 50 student maximum. She's very creative in seeing kids, before school, after school, and in groups. She's also shortened some of the sessions, let's say from 20 minutes or 30 minutes a week to 20 minutes a week, in hopes to serve more of the population. However, I mean, she's extending her day pretty considerably and looking at no planning time for the groups that she's seeing. Our Acadia clinician has 33 active students. They're limited because of the scope of being reimbursed by insurances. They're usually seeing students for an hour at a time, where BJ is able to see, students for a half hour to 20 minutes, and in groups where they're not allowed to see groups as far as the Acadia clinician goes. So at this point, it says waiting list of 7. I would change that to 8, only because I received another referral today. And referrals are for some pretty significant reasons. Loss of a parent, or, that's happened a number of times. At this point, we're also undergoing another special education audit. We meet with the DOE team in December, so our office is busy working on preparing materials for them. One of the things that I did see is we did send out information for parents to complete a survey. And I think the last email I got from the DOE, we had like 247 respondents, where usually we get like a dozen. So either people are really happy or they're really not. So I'm anxious to see how those results look when we do get them back. I also included some information about our multilingual learners, looking at the numbers over the years. Obviously, you guys have heard this and seen this. I've got information here back to 2018, and as of now, and I believe it. I observed Eric today with some students, some middle school students, and it was really fun watching him with the students. He had a group of kids that represented the Chinese language, Ukrainian, and Spanish, and they were all working on building vocabulary, but also sharing information about how the vocabulary was said in their languages, and they even let me take a stab at it, and were quite complimentary in my pronunciation. But it was fun watching them. They were a great group. Very busy, I mean, he's full and every day, and his ed tech is full and working hard every day down at ASA. And we're fortunate that she has as much experience as she has. He's also working currently on updating our Lao plan with the DOE, and meeting actively with parents and the teams of students to create the language, individualized language plans for each student. So that's it on my end, unless, of course, you have any questions.
Lisa, could I add, he was here tonight. We had parent conferences tonight and helped us out with some translation.
You just muted, Richard.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. I just wanted to add to what Lisa said. Mr. Blacksmith was here at parent conferences tonight, and he used translation services. It was fantastic. We had families that, they would have had barriers to success in coming, and Mr. Blacksmith was able to help us overcome those. It was well received and much appreciated.
It's great. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a clarification. Lisa, so it sounds like between BJ Bowden and the waiting list that there's really about the caseload total is about 2 people's worth. We're just shy. Is that correct?
If it were 2 staff members, we could do that, but because it's an Acadia clinician, they're not able to see 50 kids because they're usually seeing kids for an hour. They have their team meetings. So yeah, we would have enough for 2 full-time staff members.
But I guess conversely, Acadia sees some students who probably could not be served directly by a staff member, right? Higher levels of psychiatry and higher levels of credentialing. Is that true or
No,
not?
no, they're very much the same, working with the
Okay.
same students. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we have, I don't know. So we have 1 full-time staff doing 40%, 140% of what's recommended.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, and that's through some groups and other, rather than just one-on-one. And I think that's the difference.
Well, the other
Uh,
difference is
yeah.
she's also taking students that she's here every day, and she's taking students even if she's a special education staff member, but she's seeing other students that are not necessarily special education students. She is, really stretched beyond her max, but doing so to provide some services to many.
And can someone remind me why we haven't opened up another position to fill this?
Well, I don't think there's a reminder.
Or like
I'm happy to
explain,
answer the
yeah,
question.
sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think with Acadia, we have two individuals who work with us, both a social worker and a
Case
caseworker, case management. And so we get those services for I would say, a reduced contracted rate because they recover some of those funds through main care billing. Um, I think what we've seen is BJ's caseload continues to expand and grow. And, I think when it hits the point of not being able to meet the need, then we'd have to look at it. And, this is something that I think we'd have to talk about, what's the best way to meet this need? Um, is there another way to meet it? It's not quite ready for a second whole person. Um,
And there's been
I'm
something.
seeing this really for the first time tonight as well. So
Yes, and this is really, and this was kind of new to me as well, but it's also our Arcadia person recently had a baby, so we're really stretching things to cover people at this point in time. We're looking forward to her return because we're definitely feeling that with her not in the halls. We did get somebody from Acadia to come 1 day a week to pick up some of our higher needs students, and we've also asked BJ to help triage some of the higher needs students. So, it's definitely something I think we need to be talking about in the near future, and unless we can think of a way of revamping these kind of services. I think it's wonderful for students, especially that are not receiving services under special education, to get services through the Acadia model. We have other students that go out and work with the clinician offsite where they're missing school, where the ones with Acadia were really able to work with staff and schedules, and students their time in school is being less impacted by those services. So it's just a really continuing to grow need.
Yeah, I mean, the answer no is because when we built the budget a year ago, this is what we anticipated the need would be, and it's exceeded. So I think it's a keep watching and paying attention kind of situation. If I'm sure it's not going to turn around next week, but we obviously need to keep paying attention to this. And, the possibility exists if the recommendation comes from administration to do something before the next budget year. But I guess I'd be waiting for a recommendation.
But I'm trying to remember, maybe there was some position related to this that we didn't, like a halftime thing we were talking about during that budget, but maybe it was in a different area.
Well, BJ was halftime, was it just 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And we've already substantially upped the resources in this area. So um, yeah, it's going to continue to be continue to be something we need to keep an eye on.
no, you might be thinking about our well-being coordinator.
Say that again, the what?
Our well-being coordinator. You might be thinking of that position. The
Maybe,
halftime position we added this
yeah.
year.
Could
I
be.
mean, I don't know that I have a question, but clearly the same kind of we need to keep an eye on it is happening with MLL too. I just spent the day looking at exponential curves in ecology, and that curve looks pretty close to exponential to me. Certainly doesn't show a sign of stopping. So, and I know the larger context is Bangor got identified as a city that the United States government concentrates refugees in cities, so they have the capacity to serve them. And Bangor got identified, and so don't know that that's going to change or go down anytime soon. So that's obviously something to keep a conversation on too. I would be curious. I mean, I think we've had so many conversations about special ed. I'm pretty clear on what the philosophy and FAPE and all that kind of stuff is around special ed, but there's so many different approaches to MLL learners? I'd be kind of curious sometime to just get a little update on what our core approach is and how we're serving, big picture. There's pull-out models. There's don't put them in the regular classroom until they've got enough English to go. I'd be curious to just hear an update on what our approach is for MLL learners, since that's clearly an issue that's exploding and not going to go away.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on the needs of the learner. It depends on their WIDA scores, what level of a learner they are. There are recommendations from the state as far as levels and how much time per day, whether they're in high school, middle school. In the elementary school, there's as much push in as possible, because the full immersion is the best approach to learn the language. But it's definitely different as the kids get older.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm not asking for anything now, but it might be something to be fun to schedule a month or two down the road, just to have a little slightly deeper conversation about that.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Student report. Dorsa, Connor? Oh, no, I skipped Lisa. Not Lisa, I skipped Susan.
That's okay.
Susan, go ahead. It's late at night here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Now, before I dive into some of the topics of my written report, I just wanted to let you all know that we are continuing DEI work, and that is manifesting itself this week in I am folding some Speak Up at School pocket guides for Richard and Sam to use with our winter coaches this week, so that they have some tools and some practice really speaking up against bigotry. And there's 4 strategies: interrupt, question, educate, and echo. And so we're continuing our work in many ways, but with coaches this week. Lots of curriculum work going on. Later on the agenda are 2 courses for our math curriculum, pre-calculus and calculus. I hope that you've all had a chance to take a look at those. I'd really like to thank Rick Jelly, Margie Innes, and Heather Holmes for their work developing those curriculum maps. I think they did a great job, and we appreciated the feedback from the curriculum committee about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, are there any questions at this point around the math curriculum? Okay. Also going on is some English language arts curriculum work. We made some really great progress with the middle school teachers last week, and lots of work going on at ASA in that realm as well. Social studies, especially at the high school, taking a look at our US history courses and what were some common themes and expectations for a wider variety of courses that can count as US history towards graduation credit. So that work is really exciting. And in addition to all of our ELA teachers and our social studies teachers and Meredith Diamond, I'd also like to point out some special thanks to Heidi Clark for making sure we have subs, and for, again, to Sam for sitting in as a sub for a little while so we could get started with our meeting the other day. We had a sub running a little bit late. So lots of coordinated work going on there. And in the very near future, next week, we'll be continuing some work with physical education curriculum, and also delving into some world language work in December. Let's see. Tomorrow is an early release day, and ASA will be doing parent-teacher conferences during our early release time, but they will, on November 20th, take a deeper dive into our NWEA data, which is happening tomorrow at OMS and OHS as well, really looking at the results of those, as well as some other data that we have on our students, so we can brainstorm together some next steps and instructional strategies to help support our students. And then our math or STEM professional learning specialist, Jen Franzak from the Rise Center, has been extremely well received by our teachers. I'd like to praise both her and our teachers for being open-minded in ways that they can connect with her to really work on professional development strategies, integrating things into our classroom. There's a wide list of things in my written report that Jen's been working with our teachers on, which have benefited our students. And she's basically using a gradual release model, doing some kind of more intensive work with folks that she started in September and into October, releasing some of those folks to do more things on their own. And in the meantime, she has a few teachers waiting in the wings to start up that more intensive work with her. So it's exciting that we do have a wait list for folks to work with Jen Franczak. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you. And now, sorry, students, Dorson Connor.
Okay, for school culture, as I said before, Shrek Musical is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Make sure to buy your tickets.
Arnold High School is holding a club fair this Wednesday during Wind.
The Ace Adams PTO family dance this weekend.
The ASA book fair was last week.
The homecoming winners in senior class has an ice cream party tomorrow. Many thanks to the student council.
Picture retake day for Arnold High School is November 22nd.
The OHS class of 2027 is having a wreath sale.
The OHS class of 2027's Pampered Chef sale ended today.
For academics, the quarter ended November 1st, and grades are available for families to see in Power School as of last week.
OMS report cards are finalized as of today.
Almost current conferences are this week.
Early public registration opened last Friday.
The past few weeks have been very busy for seniors. Good luck to all those submitting college applications.
For activities, winter sports met today after school to discuss the upcoming season.
Winter sports season begins next week.
The indoor track team has a new head coach, Derek Treadwell.
Congratulations to the OHS Quiz Bowl team for qualifying for the main Quiz Bowl show. Best of luck to them as they head to their first taping tomorrow.
The OMS Outing Club went to Acadia National Park earlier this month.
The Environmental Club held a bake sale a couple weeks ago to raise money for hurricane relief.
Boys cross country won first at Class C state championship and recently competed at New England's placing 26th.
Ben Arsenault became the first male OHS cross country runner to win first at state championship in the program's history.
Arnold High School boys soccer got the sportsmanship award.
And lastly, all state honors choir auditions were at Skowhegan High School last Saturday.
I can't see. It sounds like it's done.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Thank you. I really appreciate hearing about all the things happening. Okay, we'll go on and move on to the superintendent's report.
I'm going to do my best to get through this without coughing, so apologies if I have to pause for a moment. We had, as you know, in August, we submitted a middle school school construction application to the Department of Education in the hopes that we would get funded for a major renovation for the building. We had a part of the process once you submit an application is there's a DOE school construction team site visit, which we had last week. They met with Richard, Derek, and myself for, I don't know, an hour and a half or so. And, asked us just a lot of questions, and there were some clarifications, and they did a walk around. I think it went really well. I think, our building with its age fares, I think, pretty well in terms of need. They indicated they've received more applications this time than they've ever received. I think they said it was 97. And last cycle we looked up, it was something like 76. So 20 more applications this cycle. We will hear in June, they said. There's so many, they have to do a site visit to all sites and then, do ratings. So June is when the list will come out. We look back, this last cycle, they completed less projects than normal. And I think that was a COVID impact, probably. The cycle before, I think it was it 15 or 16 projects that were completed? So, let's say best case scenario, it's, 16 to 18 projects of 97. So, we'll wait and see where we are on the list. But we're providing some follow-up information to them, like our asbestos report and, some reports that we have, our water testing report, just to add to our application. I don't know, Derek, Richard, do you have anything to add to that? You're muted, Richard, if you're
Sorry,
saying.
Meredith. I don't have anything to add. I think, I mean, you summed it up pretty good there. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I emailed the board back, I think it was in October, maybe early November, about Sue Bell's planned retirement. We received notice that she plans to retire effective February 6th of 2025. And we put out an ad for that position. And what we'd like to do is to hire someone, hopefully have someone start by mid-December so that there's an opportunity for a crossover phase of training with Sue before she leaves. So I'd like to just request that authorization from the board to do that kind of overlap of hiring. As I said to you, with Sue being a 35-year employee in that position, that's a lot of knowledge that she has in her head that we want to try to have someone learn as much as they can from her before her departure. So that's what I would request. We're doing interviews. We plan to begin application review later this week and have our first round of interviews late next week.
So why don't we go ahead and I'll just do that as a motion. I would make a motion to authorize the superintendent to hire a payroll support person specialist replacement as soon as possible to maximize overlap with the existing person in that position. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion or questions? Go ahead and Noah, you
I,
ready to,
yeah, no,
ready to vote?
yeah.
Yeah, aye. Okay, Kevin. That's an aye. Jake?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. So that is approved. Go ahead, Meredith.
Thank you. And it goes without saying, Sue is someone that we all rely on for so many things in our district, and she is someone that, is super knowledgeable and super efficient. And we're certainly going to miss her when she's gone. And 35 years is a long time of service to our district, and we're very appreciative of her contributions over the years. I wanted to just circle back to the strategic plan, let you know that we did the every door direct mail mailing to all Orono residents, which was, over 3,500. And we did the regular mail to 156 households that are students who attend our schools who don't reside in Orono. And then we did an additional 393, actually 352 to, and then 42 direct, we are taking them to Indian Island to our 5 through 8 grade students in our 5 sending towns. So Glenburn, Veazey, Milford, and Greenbush, we mailed to those homes. Indian Island, we are delivering those to the school and they're going to send them home. So, a good amount of kind of exposure out around our strategic plan, and we've gotten some good feedback. And so we think that's a nice start to our kind of messaging, our messaging committee, a group that is working, kind of looking at what we developed during our workshop that we had, October, I think. Met recently. I put a couple of samples. I just put them in there before the meeting of some phrases we've been working on, and we kind of wanted to, just get a reaction from some audiences about those. So if you, I'll just see if I can pull one up here. So um, the phrases that we, have been circling around, a couple of different phrases: small schools, big opportunities, think boldly, act kindly, be known, um, are the two kind of phrases that have emerged from both the messaging workshop, and then from that, Meredith D took kind of the process to several classes at OHS, and we got some feedback from them. And this is where we are with that work. Brian, can I turn this over to you to just talk a little bit more about this and solicit some feedback?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like Meredith said, we've been kind of funneling information. We talked about it at the board, and we got 30 or so student proposals from some of the English classes. In the end, one of these, I think, primarily came out of the board discussion. One of these primarily came out of the student discussion. Both of them got workshopped some more with a smaller group, which, in addition to several of the principals and assistant principals, also included somebody from the university who works in marketing. And we felt like these really hit the target of 4 to 6 words and capturing themes that cut across are consistent with our strategic plan, our values, our vision, our portrait of a learner, our goals in the strategic plan, and also just, we think, the marketing when we talk to people about why they come to Orono schools or move into Orono. We think both of those things showed up repeatedly. They were themes that showed up repeatedly in the student feedback as well. So kind of the notion of, a small school that delivers lots and lots of opportunities in classes and curriculum. And then really getting a little bit more to the student values, to think boldly, kind of own your future. The kind of whole theme about healthy risk-taking and a growth mindset. The act kindly. Kind is a word that's just shown up over and over again. And the be known kind of echoes the small schools piece, right? The place where you're actually seen as an individual and appreciated as an individual and have your needs met as an individual. So these are the two main tags. We were kind of stuck with trying to boil it down to one tag, but we ended up really thinking it through and thinking that it was important to us that the tags be shortened to the point, 4 to 6 words, and we couldn't pack everything into that. But once we decided to go with 2 tags, and we were thinking this through about letterhead and websites, and there's clearly more than one space to communicate themes. We felt like with these 2 themes, we really have captured both who we are and who we want to represent to the outside world. And I guess I would love to hear some feedback from board members on, where you think these hit and where you think maybe is still missing, if anything. And that could be anything from, really big picture to, this is a time to suggest moving commas if you want to move a comma somewhere. Noah, go ahead.
I like them. I don't know. That's my initial impact reaction. I don't know.
That's good. Anybody else? I see Kevin's in the comments. He's also likes them. Mark or Jake, you don't have to say anything, but anything to add?
Yeah, they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're fine. I like the small school, big opportunities aspect of it.
Yeah, our working group really split. Half of them really like that aspect, and the other half really like the the action verbs of the other one. So I think when we bring the 2 in, I think the hope is we have something for everybody, right? Different different
When I
perceptions.
when I first read the be known part, I was thinking, I wasn't thinking what you said of be known within our schools. I was thinking students who leave here being known and being known is the aspect of making a difference in the outside world.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
was thinking of that at a different angle, and I wonder how many people think of it which way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we did have some follow-on conversations about how we can build on these, these sub-themes and reinforce these messages. But yeah, I've toyed in my head with be known sounds kind of crisp and strong, but sometimes I wonder if be seen is but it doesn't feel quite as strong. But yep. All right. I'm not hearing anybody who's going to be deeply upset if we kind of commit to this going down the road. I think we're also, I think Meredith said this, but just in case, I'll repeat. The plan was to kind of solicit feedback in parallel from multiple groups. One group being the board, one group being the set of students who help contribute to this, and third group staff. Meredith, I can't remember. Or am I making up a third group?
I think it was the strategic planning committee.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Thank you, Meredith. Yeah. So get feedback from those three groups and then bring this back to the board sometime, potentially since it's middle of December, our December meeting or January meeting at the latest. So that'll give us some time to, reinforce these messages with most of the high school recruiting in the spring. Anything else you'd add to that, Meredith?
Well, just that this was really the first part of what we were trying to converge on, and really, there's some other ideas that we're discussing about how to do messaging in a different way. So this is just one piece of what we're talking about now.
Yeah. So, I mean, channels and how to fill channels clearly become the next topics. But one of the things we found out that was interesting to me is that Old Town sends home, I think it's a 32-page newsletter about 3 times a year. So other people are clearly thinking in this direction too. So I think there's more conversations about resources and level of commitment to this notion of putting ourselves out there to be had in the future too. Anything else on your report, Meredith?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, next
Can I ask
up.
some questions or?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a few follow-up questions. I mean, sort of, I guess one of them was following up. I don't know if this is maybe what you were alluding to, but like my questions about boosting the visual imagery and such within the school. And I don't know if that's a part of where you're going, or in terms of getting more high quality photographs to communicate stuff. Is that part of the plan, or?
I think that's a piece. Multiple social media. Right now we have informational social media, but trying to get some more exciting social media communication going. I think not that we necessarily want to do exactly what Old Town's doing, but thinking about what kinds of mailings we're doing every year is another piece of the conversation. Thinking about how those can all play off of those 2 taglines and reinforce them is another piece of it. So there's definitely a significant conversation to be had going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, yeah, just interested to be in the loop on some of that going forward. Can I ask just a couple other questions, Meredith, about, so in terms of the feedback you've gotten, has that feedback come from, like, where have you heard that feedback, the positive feedback about, like, have you heard from out sending towns or just within I'm just very curious how much this has brought people out.
Feedback about
just like the positive feedback. Because we got a little bit, I think all the board members got one email. I'm just curious about the response that this
mailing.
About
this?
Yeah, about the mailing.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Some staff feedback. I haven't heard from sending towns from that. Um, and I'd say a couple of other parents in addition to the one you got. So
And I guess one other question I had just on the OMS building application stuff. So is that something that again we can just like if we don't get it this year, we can just roll over and apply again next year with the same like application essentially, or
applications windows are only accepted. They put out a call for applications approximately every 7 or to 8 years.
oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay. So,
But this application, it will be important that if we don't get funded this round, that our district applies every single time there's an opportunity to apply.
yeah.
Because if you don't, then improvements you've made, um, you're not held harmless against improvements you've made if you don't apply every time.
Okay. So we can go ahead and so like if we start fixing things up, it doesn't, yeah. Counting
We
has
can start doing critical repairs as long as we keep applying.
Yeah, I mean, we have been doing critical repairs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, when they're critical, you don't have a choice.
yeah.
And we had some roof work we had to do last year. Um, and if we had been applying all along, that wouldn't be held against us. But because the district hasn't applied since the early 2000s, anything we've done, you know, kind of hurts our application, so to speak.
So I guess I'm wondering too, so like we've been sort of banking on holding things off until this application. Once this is in now, can we be more aggressive about getting things done that we want to get done? Is that
Well, I would say it wouldn't be a good use of our
if we don't?
resources to do that until we know
That's what
what
I mean.
results.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get it, that's what, yeah.
Well, but even then, right, there's a risk of being redundant. If we don't get it this time, we obviously hope to get it in 7 years, and we don't want to spend a lot of our own taxpayer money if we can get state money. Right? It's a balancing act. We can do some things, but A, we have to come up with the money, and B, we have to recognize that that's state money that we're foregoing. It'll be a hard navigation process if it doesn't get funded. So for
Okay.
now, let's all knock on wood and cross our fingers and hope.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Meredith before we move on? Okay. Next up, looks like we have discussion item pickleball court update.
Yeah, I asked Derek to come to update everyone on the pickleball court and remediation plan that he's been working on for getting some things corrected with the work that was done there. So I'm going to turn it over to Derek to kind of explain to you what we learned about, the lines that were drawn and what the plan is for some remediation of issues we found.
So we ended up engaging the, sorry.
Guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
First go around with the speaker, sorry. So I ended up engaging, consulting with Maine Tennis and Track, the folks that did the Bureau reports for Florida. Fantastic job over there. Kind of had a spot where we needed a expert in the room. So he came over, two of the solutions to basically resolve the current pickleball, 48 square. Said the only two resolutions to that problem is redo the court, or redo a third of the court, both of which they weren't able to do this year cycle.
It is a
Derek,
little hard to hear you, Derek. Can you, I don't know if you can move closer to the speaker for a little bit?
and Derek, if you can back up and explain like what the identified issues are first before you talk about remediation.
Yeah, so there's two sort of separate issues that are identified with, is that better? You guys hear better?
Yes.
Yeah. There's two issues, the pickleball issue, then there's an identified tennis issue, which is important to separate the two. So the pickleball issue, the two forms to basically resolve this would be to repaint the surface in some way, shape, or form. That was a recommendation of the main tennis and track folks. In order to do that, that's not something that they can do this year, it's something we have to entertain doing at a later time. During that visit, they identified the center line, which was about a half-inch wider than the 2-inch center line in the tennis ball court. He said that that issue could present a NPA related problem during tennis. So that being said, he said obviously that's not something they could do this year. He said that's certainly something you could resolve in-house. He said picking up some paint and saving out the lines they've got, certainly something that's obtainable. I think that looks like a much better service than it is right now. The other issue that he mentioned that's not really NPA related, said the gloss of the paint is certainly a little tackier. So their recommendation again was to sand that surface down to make it more of a textured paint.
So, what this boils down to is we have a pickleball courts that are not squared, are not, measured properly, that were painted down with paint that's not textured in the way that you would want to have on a court. And so the remedy for, the short term is to get the courts to fix the center line issue that Derek mentioned, and we'll just have to have non-square pickleball court lines for the time being. I think with this, I certainly learned that not just any line vendor can do this kind of work. And I think the remedy that they described to Derek is something that he feels like he and his team can do in-house to get the court center line and the court lines corrected for tennis playing. You have any questions about that?
So if I'm hearing everything correctly, it sounds like there's two issues with pickleball court. One, the lines aren't square, and then the other is they're almost of a slippery paint instead of a textured paint, which could pose a problem for tennis players in the spring, cutting and stopping and going on on the painted lines. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then the third issue, there are really two issues about tennis. One is the slipperiness, and that's actually for both pickleball and tennis. The other tennis issue is the center line. And so
Like the center line of the existing tennis court or the center line of the pickleball line?
tennis.
So that we're there before the blue was painted.
Well, what happened was, Derek, correct me if I'm saying this wrong. When they did the pickleball lines, they painted over the tennis lines in a way to make the pickleball court more primary than the tennis court, and it should not have been done that way. So they came back and painted over the center line that they had done blue and did it white. But in doing that, it's too wide, and so it has to be kind of taken down. So
Yeah, correct. And it was, even with the first round, it was already wide. With the second round, it actually widened it a little bit more. So this would have been present with the first round.
Have we reached out to the vendor who did the pickle lines and like, hey, you screwed up? What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I've reached out to them personally. They've said they're really at a point where there's not much that they can do. So I think it's really at a stalemate whether or not we really want them to come in and to do the work as well. I think
Yeah,
that's-
at some point, you don't want to keep screwing up.
yeah, I think that's the point where I was at. I was like, I don't know. It's really we're at a point that we really want to have them come in and take this. That was the expert in the room approach.
So we're talking about different options here to remedy this situation. I've got a third possible remedy out there, which is simply to remove the line. Probably shouldn't have been put on in the first place. Is that an option? And B, what would that entail in removing the lines?
That's the most expensive option, right? You'd have to redo the whole court to remove the lines.
Oops.
I'm sorry.
Said oops. I mean, this is, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but really, we shouldn't be here, to be perfectly blunt. And the fact that we are, and now we're kind of struggling on how to fix this, is kind of frustrating, when in reality, we probably shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Well, I think
Tennis coaches said it, the tennis players said it, and we went ahead and did it, and now here's where we are.
I mean, I guess have a little different take. You're right. There was a 3-2 decision, but there was a decision to facilitate this use for our students and for the community. And it sounds to me like we had a contractor who shouldn't have been hired, screwed up, lesson learned, right? It would have been, with a different contractor, this could have been done without causing the problems that have occurred. And then we're back to a 3-2 opinion about whether those blue lines should be down there at all or not. But anyway, there's probably multiple takes on this situation. But you're right. If we had not done this, we would not be in this position. But anything else we need to say about pickleball? This is probably the most time-consuming $1,800 or $1,100 or whatever it was that this board has done in a long time. Anything else we need to talk about this?
Are we confident that with whatever solution we come up with, that our tennis team will be able to use these courts without being in violation of any MPA or other regulations in the spring?
Yes. Both AD and Kevin said that this resolution will satisfy it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I missed the presentation.
Sure.
But the coach came and talked to me, so
Richard, you might want to mute.
Richard, I'll mute him. Yeah.
All right, moving on. We have an enrollment update.
So I provided the October 1 enrollment summary. As you know, this is a really important report that impacts our subsidy that we get each year. And I just wanted to, Lisa shared some of this information with you in a more detailed format in her report. But one of the most noteworthy things I would say about this is down in the bottom section. Let me just open this up and share my screen so that everyone can see what we're talking about. So in this bottom section, I mean, this top section, not much change since we last looked at this. We've been growing across all 3 schools. I don't think any school is down compared to where we were the last time I showed you this. It seems like we're getting new students all the time still. But what was really noteworthy to me about our data was this, well, as Lisa already shared with you, our EL count that compared to last year is up 136%. Last year we were at 11, and this year we're at 26 as of the October 1 count. But the other piece that was just really a big change is the economic status count. You can see our total number this year was 243. Last year's number was 196, so that's a 20, almost 24% increase. And I attribute this to really just we're collecting the data maybe a little more effectively and doing I think better data verification to make sure we have everything reflected in the numbers. The changes we've made to how we collect our forms and how we follow up with families is getting a higher rate of return on the economic status form. And Lynn in particular is doing just a lot of really close verification of making sure that all families that are either returning the form saying, what would qualify them, or we have direct certification data to make sure all of those are correctly identified in our system. This helps us with subsidy in a number of ways, and I think is important to make sure we have right. And so I'm really pleased to see that number. The other thing that's interesting to me, and I think would probably be interesting to some of you, looking at our overall count as a district, we've talked a lot about high school enrollment. I think it is the first time since I've been in the district in this role, our ASA enrollment is higher than our high school enrollment, which means our Orono resident population is strong, right? That those numbers are not showing a decline. If you look at the K through 8 count and the 9 through 12 count, what that says to me is that, as a district, this year we've gained 21 students in our K-8 population and lost 12 in our 9 through 12 population. So, as a district, are higher than we have been in K through 8 students. And where we're seeing the decline is in our tuition student population, which we've already really absorbed that loss this year. So I don't expect our subsidy that we'll get in, January to be lower than where we have been. Hopefully it'll be stronger if they hopefully listen to advocacy from, Brian and others around inflationary impacts. But I think, we absorbed this year in our tuition projections a loss, and I think that is where we saw the loss this year. So I guess overall, in my thinking, I've been worried about what's going to come out on the ED 279, but looking at these numbers, I know that that's not where we're seeing the drop, and so our ED 279 will probably be as strong as it has been, and I think stronger because of these numbers in EL and economic status and our resident population going up. You have any questions about that?
So just to clarify, the economic status, those are families that qualify that poverty rate or something that qualifies them for like free lunch and stuff, or
Yeah, normally it would be the qualifier for free or reduced lunch, but because we do
yeah.
Free lunch for all, there's a different form we use that, is a qualifier for if someone qualifies as economically disadvantaged. So that's what that is.
Like Meredith said, that it plays multiple roles in the funding formula. It means some extra money on the top for students who might potentially have higher needs, but it also changes the percentage of the total formula that comes from the state versus is expected from the local. I got that right?
Um, it
No. Yeah, it
it
doesn't change
impacts
that.
our Title I and our our, entitlement funding.
Yeah, that's right. I got it wrong. The percentage comes from just our property valuations, but yeah, but it does add in so-called page two. It adds in a bunch of extra funding there.
And ED 279, you remind me what that is?
It's the funding formula for how much the state's going to give
That is, okay.
for a quote unquote basic education, which is this day and age a pretty minimal education, but that's helpful to see that more detailed analysis. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead and move on. Action items. We have a new stipend proposal. Your voice up to introducing that, Meredith?
Yes, I can do that. So we have from the stipend committee a proposal to restructure our Nordic ski coaching stipends. We've previously had just one head coach stipend, and that head coach stipend was split between two individuals, is how that's been carried out. And really, we need to have two coaches in this program, and there needs to be a head coach and a second assistant coach to meet the needs of the program. We had a change in the coaching staff, and really that caused us to really think about how we structure these stipends. So this request is for to add that assistant Nordic ski coach stipend, and the stipend committee had discussion about this and approved it, recommending it to move forward with a time of rating of 5 points, responsibility rating of 2 points, and that's really compatible with other assistant coach stipends we have in the contract. With the nature of the sport kind of being spread out, the equipment needs. Mike really talked about how it's just one person cannot do this by themselves.
Okay, I would make a motion to authorize the addition of a assistant Nordic ski coach at the high school. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Noah,
Aye.
Kevin, Jake,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
also vote aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next up is the co-curricular nominations. I would make a motion to approve the slate as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? I'm debating whether to read it or not. It's getting lengthy. I think I'll just say as presented. Is there any discussion or questions?
One thing I would just say is there is a new varsity position on here. Connor mentioned it when he talked earlier about that. The indoor track coach, there was a committee for that position. I think, Mark, you served on that committee. Mike led that search, and so the individual is listed on this slate of nominees.
Thank you. Anything else? We'll go ahead and vote. Noah,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
also vote aye. Carries 5-0. Next up, we have two grants, $3,000 from Agriculture in the Classroom and $2,500 from Friends of Acadia, both secured by Jess Archer in support of the school gardens. By policy, we have to approve grants. I think it's over $500, primarily to ensure that they're not entailing long-term obligations on the district that they were unwilling to accept. I would make a motion to approve the acceptance of the two grants as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Meredith, anything you need to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. Those of us who've been on the board for a while have seen Jess Archer is just incredible pulling in these grants for the garden. So appreciate her work on that. Noah, you ready to vote or do you have a question? Ready to vote. Okay, your vote.
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Carries 5-0. Curriculum. So we have had a
May I
long.
just add a comment, Brian, on Jess's grants? I think this is the third or fourth one in the last couple of years. Well done to Jess on these, and the school garden project is really taken off with kids and I think in the community, and it's been a great project, very positive all around. And I just want to commend Jess on her hard work on all these different grants. It's really a great thing, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely agree. I don't know what you count and how long you count, but I think it's way more than 4 or 5 at this point. I think we're headed towards 10 over a longer time frame, probably.
It
Really
could be.
impressive.
I'm just thinking in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, curriculum. We've had a lengthy process. It's been through the curriculum committee. It's come to the board. Susan, you want to introduce it?
Sure. Last year, we brought forward math curriculum for kindergarten through geometry. We have 4 teachers at the high school teaching a wide variety of courses. So we, after working on those, really tackled pre-calculus and calculus. The next piece that we would bring forward to the board for math, the final piece would be statistics. And because we have had quite a few changes in teachers there, we have saved that for last. But as Brian mentioned, this really has been a lengthy process, and we're pleased to be able to bring it to the board tonight.
I would motion to approve the calculus and pre-calculus curriculum as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
I would just add, in a lot of cases, being a college professor doesn't overlap with being a K-12 professor, but in this case, calculus is at the interface, and I do a lot of calculus course approvals for transfer students in biology, so I must have read probably 50 syllabi from university calculus courses, and I was impressed. I thought this looked very comparable to what's at UMaine and what's being taught in universities around the country, which is appropriate for the calculus course. So I was impressed with the work they did. Did offer Susan some feedback. I'd like to see longer term some work on non-calculus endpoints for math, especially since we require 4 years of math. And I think there's some professional and other forms of math that might be interesting to think about. But for the calculus and pre-calc, I think what we have is great. Any other questions or comments?
Because I have a question. I remember last year, I don't know if it was, there was some critique of the resources, like the textbooks and stuff used in math, and I'm wondering, I don't know anything about, but are these modern, like meeting, like flexible, able to have multiple levels of learning in the classroom kinds of new textbooks that are in the instructional resources here?
I don't know right offhand how old these resources are. I do know that the teachers often rely on the online components, which get updated fairly regularly. So there is a traditional hard textbook as well as the electronic versions. I also feel that they have quite a bit of flexibility into the order that they have decided to teach some of the topics because they didn't agree with some of the ways the textbook was laid out.
Yeah, as I'm trying to remember back to that, we had some public comment in a meeting last year.
That was, I think, more K-8. That was a pretty
Yeah.
different level of math that I recall.
Yeah, and I
That
guess
was middle school, and we have since replaced those materials.
okay, and I guess I would just the same things don't apply to these materials. So I guess I'm just sort of like pushing on that to see that we have the latest, like best resources. Where, yeah.
Not disagreeing with your comment about resources, but we do have a separate process for resources and curriculum too.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I'm just noticing that they're in here as part of this. So.
yeah. Any other questions or comments? We can go ahead and vote. Noah.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Jake.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
I also vote aye, carries 5-0. Thank you for the teachers and Susan and everybody who worked on that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Susan. On to subcommittee reports. Policy subcommittee did not meet this month, partly because of minimal need and partly because unavailability of people. We will meet in December. I'm not sure that have to go back and look at my notes, but I think we got a couple things that have been kicking around forever, like FF policy, and there's also a exemption for administration of insulin. Was it policy J something? Anyway, there are a few things kicking around for December, but not a lot. Anything on UTC?
Yeah, we met this past Thursday to formally approve, the vote on the state bond that passed overwhelmingly. So that was very exciting. So now UTC has can begin the process of working with contractors and to purchase about $1.8 million in capital equipment. And just credit to the director. Gosh, I definitely know her name.
Amanda Peterson.
Amanda Peterson, thank you. Sorry. Who's been really amazing working with towns and putting together this in short order. Everything has to be expensed by the end of June and invoiced by the end of next December. So it's a very quick turnaround, and a lot of work has gone into it by Amanda and the staff at UTC. So very amazing work. Always a privilege to be a part of that process, even on the periphery.
Yeah, that's great. And, I think that vote's just a signal of how much the community, meaning in this case, the broader community, Southern Penobscot County values CTE, career and technical education. So, yep. See, Jake, am I right that, oh, no, it has been removed. Okay. Curriculum subcommittee is meeting on Thursday. Anything you want to add, Susan?
Yeah, I would just say that we're going to look at our NWA data and some historical NWA data as well as our science data just to get a broader district perspective and feedback on that. So I'm looking forward to the meeting.
Great. And anything on wellness, Noah?
Yeah, we met, we talked about different ideas for what we could do on wellness initiatives, thinking about bringing people in to the school to help with some of the food initiatives and different ideas to promote wellness within the school. And what we can do. I think one question I want to bring forward here, though, is where, there's the wellness committee, and then there's this well-being subcommittee. And when we were trying to have our wellness committee, most of our wellness committee was not there because they're at the well-being subcommittee meeting. And there's, I think, some real confusion about why we have two different things that are very related and what our charge is. And I'm very confused about it, and the others are too, I think. And so this is a question.
So the wellness committee comes out of federal law
Sure.
that requires us to have a wellness committee.
Yeah.
It traditionally has had more of a focus on physical wellness. So I think the areas you've looked at in terms of food and outdoor education and some of those kinds of things, working with Ben, that's the law that it's tied to, is the federal funding for food. Or in an earlier incarnation with Aaron, it worked on getting silverware instead of recyclable silverware in. I think those all are great fits to the wellness committee and the scoping and mandate that comes out of that committee. I think, as we all know, the strategic plan has put a focus on mental health and well-being, which is where the well-being committee comes in. And it's got some overlap in personnel, but in terms of scope, it probably, has a slightly different scope and slightly different sets of resources and things it's accessing. So that would be my take on it. Anything to add to that, Meredith?
No, I think there are, some there's some interest that overlap between the two groups. But I also think there's just some distinct functions of the wellness committee that aren't maybe a part of the vision of what the well-being work of the district is right now, like the work we're trying to do in the strategic plan. So I guess I need to look at who your membership is on the wellness committee and who, because the well-being committee, I'm not sure. I didn't think those were overlapping members. Just thinking about the membership that I knew of the wellness committee, but maybe, you know, you and I can look at who those members are and talk more, Noah.
Or
So that sounds like a good next step, at least. Yeah, I was surprised to hear that there was a lot of overlap too. That wasn't my perception.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe, I could easily be wrong on that. So that at a minimum, they should not be scheduled at the same time, right? That seems clear. So
Yeah, I do think, sorry, if I get, 'cause I'm on Noah's group. And so for some of us, there was like a couple people, I think you're right, Noah, that were in the well-being, but then there was people like me that was other committees and they were all kind of, so it wasn't all like just in those two conflicts. Like I had a different kind of conflict. So I think you're right, no, unfortunately, as people were responding to your email, it was like, oh, this has come up, this has come up, this has come up, and it was unfortunate, but I think you, Meredith and Brian, you're not wrong. It wasn't all that conflict, but there was quite a few, and I do apologize about that, Noah.
yeah, I mean, I think like Ashley in particular came out of that meeting straight to ours, and we were sad some time trying to figure out, like, basically having the same meeting again, and like, what are we doing? So
yeah, I mean, it's new. I think it's probably an ongoing conversation. I'm not sure that.
yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, I think it'd be worth having a little clear boundary or like understanding of like how these are coordinated and what we're doing. So yeah.
I mean, my understanding is the wellness committee is focused on physical well-being, and the well-being committee is focused on mental well-being and community well-being. And obviously, those two overlap and are not completely distinct. But if you wanted to describe centers of focus, that would be the distinction between the two. Okay. Strategic Plan Leadership Committee is meeting on December 3rd. Don't know any other update on that, Meredith?
No, just that I know that some of our subcommittees have been working in the interim and we'll have a report at that next meeting about what work they've been doing since our first meeting.
Yep. And I guess it's not on the agenda, but we did have the MESBA legislative body, right, which is all the school boards sending people to the legislative body for MESBA. And we walked through the resolutions last time. Bottom line is every single thing that was proposed passed. It was its usual mix of people who think they know a lot of Robert's Rules of Order, making things take a lot longer than it needed to, and a lot of people who don't know how to do Zoom and vote on their phone at the same time. I've been accused of not selling that meeting very well, but it is kind of a humorous thing to watch. But everything did pass. The thing that had the smallest vote was the resolution that came forward from this district about keeping up with inflation. That was partly because it was the last thing we voted on after a long day. It also, quite frankly, in my opinion, is because MESBA is pretty clicky and people are kind of used to everything coming from the top down, and they're not used to seeing a whole lot of resolutions coming from school boards. But it did pass with 75% of the vote. 2/3 vote was required, and it got that. So everything passed.
I saw a margin on that. I appreciate your work on that, Brian. I can't imagine how you can be a school board and be opposed to that, right? Like how could you be opposed to that resolution?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a change to the school funding paragraph, which had literally 2 words about keeping pace with inflation. So there was some territory protection going on about how it's already covered and so on and so forth. But Yeah, the discussion was very short and 75% were in favor of it. So I do feel like my goal has been to raise awareness among school board members about the impacts of inflation. And I do feel like there's starting to be a little traction. I'm seeing that showing up more and more when I go to meetings. When I went to Meredith mentioned this a couple of months ago, there were these hearings on EPS. The legislature mandated a new EPS round of hearings and recommendations, and I was not the only person who mentioned inflation at that. So I think we're getting a little traction, but there's more work to be done. All right. Any other business? Any requests for future agenda items? Is there any public comment?
There's still no public in the room.
Okay, and I don't see anybody on Zoom who's unmuting. So our next meeting is December 10th. We will, board members, please note, we have a data workshop at 4:30, followed by a regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. As usual, that's in the library at OHS or on Zoom. And any requests for information and follow-up?
Wait, did we talk about that board meeting, the December 10th one already? I mean, that workshop? When? Trying to think.
I think it was.
I teach then, so I don't think I'll be there. I teach
When do you teach till?
till 5, Monday through Wednesday, assuming that's still part of the semester. That's where I'm trying to I think the semester is still going on there.
Yeah, it is.
So I teach till 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I think last time when we had a workshop, we shifted it to start at 5.
Yeah, start at 5 and have the regular meeting start at 6:30. I'd certainly be open to that. Kevin's nodding yes.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, Jake, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, so correction, we'll have a workshop starting at 5 and a regular board meeting starting at a delayed start at 6:30.
Thank you.
No, thanks for bringing it up. Okay, I would motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Go ahead and vote. Noah?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Carries 5-0. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.